This is how I'm getting the car up on jacks. And to get it pretty high, you can see how high that is. Let me kind of show you what I did. My jack doesn't reach that high, so you need to put a brick on top of the jack like that. I got one of the hockey pucks, put it under there also, give it a little more height. My jack stand only goes up to about, I don't know, 15-16 inch jack stand. Just enough room to put it right under this. Get both sides like that. I don't think this is enough room to put my transmission under, but you have to see. I'll get my other aluminum jack. Would have been nice to get those 12-ton jacks, but I don't think I really need it for this job. Alright, cars on jack stands. Here's a tip: don't leave your car in neutral when you're jacking your car up. It will reverse back. I had to do this twice, so when it reversed back, part of it, I couldn't get the garage door down. Now, it's pretty close. Of course, you want to be safe, so I'll stick another tire underneath. I got two other jacks holding my car up just in case. I went ahead and removed the air box right here. Just get it out of the way. Remove the air filter housing back there, so I'll be lifting the engine up a little bit. There's the, you can barely see it, but that's where the engine mounts are down there. I gotta loosen that bolt down there. I'm gonna change my engine mounts and my transmission mounts also. I'll remove the span tomorrow. That's all for today. This is the engine support you need to put on your top of your engine to hold the engine up while you do this, do the engine mounts. And you're gonna tilt the engine down a little bit so the transmission can tilt down so you can reach the back of the bolts. So let's get started with this. This is how the engine support is supposed to lay. All these on frame rails right here and over here. And once you get this hook onto this thermostat housing, you just tighten it up. Once you tighten it up, it will start lifting the engine up. Make sure it's secure. And just tighten it up a little bit here. The second bar, let's put extra support. There's a chain that comes with this. I'll have the chain with me. But it's probably not safe to put a chain somewhere. Let me figure out how to put the chain on here. Oh, these are 8mm bolts here. And it goes all the way around the edges. It's a good time to change your fuel filter if you need to. I might do it later. I just want to inspect to see what it looks like. There's one more 8mm right here. Last time I was under here, one of my transmission bolts, the torque bolt was kind of stripped. I want to make sure that I can remove it. And if I need to order a new one, by the way, the new one costs about 28 to 30 bucks. So if I need to order a new one, I want to go ahead and do it. Let's get this out of the way. You can see all this oil on this under tray cover. Let's take a look at what this everything looks like here. You see my transmission there. You see the oil. You get a light on this. You can see where the oil is right there. Inside where it attaches to the engine, oil pan. I'm feeling one of my oil seals on this transmission is leaking. That's why it's coming out like this. Here's what the leak under my car kind of looks like here. I'm facing the front here. So here's the fuel filter. Here's that oil that's leaking. And it leaks all the way back here. Hold on. Here's a close-up of the oil leak in my car. Not exactly sure where it's coming from. Here's the oil pan. There's the oil pan cover area. I'm wondering if I did this some time ago. Maybe the gasket underneath is not sealing that well. I did use some RTB on it also, but I really can't tell. It seems like this whole bottom is kind of wet with oil. I'm not sure how would this part get wet here. Well, I see so. And look up here. Something's wet up there. I don't think it's the oil pan gasket. What else could be right there? Just dripping on this side of the oil pan. Maybe old oil. Once I remove the maybe the transmission, I'll give it a better look, find what's going on. Right now I can't tell where the leak is coming from. Right, and it doesn't look like it's wet. I mean, it looks like it's residue. And that's the only portion I see that's wet on this oil pan here. I don't think it's this sensor. No oil around that area. Around these bolts, like oil is around these bolts here. You can tell. I'm trying to think how would oil get in those bolts like that. Let me clean it up and hopefully it still drips. Well, let's take a look around here. Attached to the transmission area right there. See right on the side. It's kind of wet. I changed the CPV twice already, so I don't think it's the CPV. Okay, let's start removing the exhaust. Here's the exhaust portion that goes down from the headers. These are the bolts you need. You need a 14mm socket wrench, and you need a E12 socket on that side to kind of get it loose. The only hard one is going to be right there. You get some form of extension or whatever to get right behind that bolt right there, because the exhaust pipes are in the way. Here's how to access that hard to reach bolt back there. Get your 14mm wrench and just hold it around the nut area like that. You don't have to move it around, just hold it in place, and get your E12 wrench and just zip it off. That's how you would get that hard to reach bolt there. This transmission jack to kind of hold my muffler section up while I'm lowering it. You want to make sure you get these exhaust hangers, push it to the right a little bit so it can clear your diffuser area. But this is a second use for this transmission jack, not just holding the transmission up. I got my jack over here. It's kind of holding the middle section up here. And all I got to do is really lower it down now. That should just come right down. I'm gonna have to pry the exhaust where it's connected to the header off a little bit so it can come off. But let's take a look at what's binding here. Say something's holding this up. All right, this is what the whole BMW M3 exhaust system looks like. Put it from under the car. For section 2, section 1, your muffler behind that. Whew. See, it's dented right here. Let me polish it out. Polish these tips while it's out. Mounts are still good. All right, next thing is going to be the drive shaft. With the exhaust removed, you can see the heat shield right here. It's held on by some 10mm bolts. I'm gonna get that off. Then we get to the drive shaft next. This is what the underneath of the car looks like. No exhaust. That's the heat shield removed from my car. That's what it kind of looks like. Now the next thing would be the drive shaft. To access all of the drive shaft bolts, you need to put your car in neutral. So let's go ahead and do that now. Okay. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is remove the Salmon relay here. Because when we pull the hydraulic lines, we don't want any fluids coming out. We're just going to pull the Salmon relay. Should pull right out. Like that. Go on the side like there. Let's cycle the key a few times, make sure the hydraulic pressure, the pump, nothing's in there. You see that cog light is on. Okay, you see that sound stop? Hopefully it's just leaving that pressure of the hydraulic pump. Okay. Remove the drive shaft on the transmission. All you gotta do is remove these 3 bolts. These are 19mm bolts here. Once we remove it, we're just gonna hang it down. We don't have to remove the whole drive shaft all the way through the differential. So, let's see how, I'm gonna just try it with a wrench first and see how hard it is to get it off. Since the drive shaft is moving, you need something to leverage against it so it can hold it in place while you unbolt it. I can't do this with one hand, so I'll be back. Oh, just a little more wiggling, and I was able to pull it out. It basically was inserted into this little collar here. And my camera's not even focused. There you go. Looks like. All right. The next thing is, let's see here. Get the transmission jack, put it on the transmission jack, start lowering this transmission brace here. Some 13mm bolts here. Let's get to that. Exhaust, heat shield removed, car's on jack stands. The plan is to just remove the hydraulic lines from the transmission, remove the transmission, install a new transmission, install the hydraulic lines. I don't want to mess with the gear positioning actuator, how to remove that, anything like that. Take a little break. The SMG fluid, I just unplugged the slave cylinder and unbolted it from the hydraulic lines from it, and just like dripping fluid right now. Let it bleed out a little bit until I start again. Taking a little break now. I just finished getting all the bolts off the transmission. There are a total of 10 bolts, including the little 10mm one that holds like a spacer shield. The top 2 starter bolts are very, not that hard, but you need very long extensions. I'll show you my extensions later. But I just want to show you, I'm about the process of actually prying the transmission off my engine. I got my transmission jack here supporting it. You can see it's cracked open already. And it should be able to just take a pry bar in here and start moving it out like that. How easy that was. I think it's already broke loose. Let me make sure all the hydraulic lines are cleared out. I'm gonna lower the transmission jack and just see. Hope it just comes on out. This is way easier than I thought. And it's all done I started at about 12. It's like almost 4 something now. About 4 hours to do everything. Not bad. There it is. Transmission is dropped. The only issue now is how to pull it out. My jack is not high enough. I got a little brick there. Thinking about rolling it off, but there's no. Maybe I can just roll it off the jack and pull it out. I think that's my best bet, or get out the brick and jack it up even higher. That transmission jack is kind of high. Ooh. Well. This is what it looks like when you're trying to change the transmission. A lot of mess. 2 transmissions right there, old and new. You can tell which one's which, right? Exhaust, heat shield, car on jack stands, support. Tools everywhere, bolts everywhere. I think I remember what each bolt looks like, but we'll see. 5 hours of work today, done for today. Good idea to label all your bolts when you're taking them off. I got little Ziploc bags, and I just put the name on them. You can know where they go to once you reinstall them. Helps out a lot. This is the original transmission that was in my car. Here's the condition of it. A lot of grease here. This is the top of the transmission. Dirt and grease. Trying to diagnose where the oil leak is coming from. If I look at the output shaft area, where's this leak is coming from? Right here. Oh, this is probably the hydraulic fluid when I was undoing the lines there. I don't think the leak is coming from here per se. Come back around. Here's the inside of the transmission, what it looks like. You can see the wet, sort of oily. What could cause that? All this oil and stuff to be in here. Strange, right? I'm gonna open up this oil seal and see what's going on in there. All this should be pretty much brand new here. I mean, what's this? It has about probably like 30,000 miles on it. This throwout bearing, this clutch fork, this pin. Figure out how did it get so oily on the inside. What could cause this? Let me do some investigation. There's another thing I noticed about this my old throw-up bearing. You see right there in the edges, grease coming out. Looks like it was leaking grease out of this bearing. And when I spin it, it spins pretty easily. You can hear a slight noise also. So I think this was a pretty new throwout bearing too. It only had 50,000 miles on it the last time I changed my clutch. Here's a new one. And it didn't have the grease fall out, and it's like a little bit harder to move around. Not as easy as the other one there. You know, these throwout bearings go out that fast. Maybe this attributed to my whining noise, but good thing I'm changing it out. Well, that's where I think the leak is coming from. That seal or the input shaft right there. You can see the gray oily residue that's coming from that little rubber seal there. And it looks kind of weird. It looks like it was kind of dented inside also. Maybe that's why. Not sure how it was dented inside. The only person that changed, even touched this area, was the dealership. And that's strange. There's this seal block is flush with this, but on my other transmission it wasn't flush to this ramp. It was like inset about 1 millimeter. You can see all this oil built up. That's where I think the leak was coming from. That sucks. That's what probably caused my transmission to burn low on fluid and start breaking down on me. Start whining, and my 6th gear would slip every time. This is the original slave cylinder. 15 years, 238,000 miles on it. It still looks not bad shape. Here's the guide tube that goes around the input shaft. See how worn it is? Input shaft. It kind of sounds the same thing as the other one. This one might be even more louder. I hope this fixes my whining noise. If not, I'll be pretty pissed off. Strange. Here's the original transmission with the leak inside of it. There's that oil still right there. I believe it was leaking from there. Here's what the leak looks like. You see how dark it is? This transmission is not that old. Fluid is not that old. Probably a couple weeks old. But it's a mixture of black and if you look closely enough, you can see glittery metallic substances inside of it. My slave cylinder boot was actually ripped also. Maybe that was leaking out a little bit too. What does it look like? That's my stainless steel clutch fork pin. This is the sound of the my original one. And this sounds kind of normal as far as the tolerance of the transmission gears, but it sounds slightly different from my new one. You see how it grinds a little bit? I also found that my slave cylinder, this little plunger rubber piece, got a rip inside of it. You can tell, but there's a rip right there. I can't see that too well. But if there's a rip in there, then it might allow some fluid out of there. Well, here's the original one again. See that little whine sound? Here's my new one. A really used one. Doesn't have that whine sound. Hopefully, this will fix it. Here's the my new used transmission with 52,000 miles on it. Here's my old one. Of course, it's gonna be a lot dirty. I want to make sure everything's set up correctly, how the original one is. Pin, throwout bearing, pin, throwout bearing, same orientation, same orientation. Let's see how worn this thing is. See how this like transmission fluid here. That's what it smells like inside of here. Where is it leaking from? Is it coming from the seal? Well, one way to find out. Let's open it up and see. Where is my 10 minute? Let me get some tools and I'll open it up. Again, here's the sound of the input shaft bearing. That's my original one. Maybe this could be the one. I'm not sure. Here's the new one. back to the original. Different tone, right? Different sound. New one. Transferring the transmission mount here from the old transmission to the old new one. Go ahead and changing the mounts. Here's the old one on the right. Here's the new one. I changed these out, I don't know, probably 50,000 miles ago. There's not much difference between the old and new. So these should probably last a long time. All you have to do is, at the bottom there's a little notch here. This notch corresponds to this velvet edge. Keep it in there, like that. And you get your nut, and you just tighten it at the bottom. So when you're installing the transmission brace back onto the transmission, this little cover goes on top of this, and it goes in between these little notches here. So, like so, and it goes over it like that, and there's a nut that goes on top of that, tightens it down. Same thing on the other side there. And like that. And this little nut area on top of here and tightens it down. So after you tighten it down, it should look like this. It's just a little notch right here. It should sit right here in between these two little forks on this transmission. This little plate here, orientation is like this. The rubber side is at the bottom. The flat metal side is at the top here. It's only going to go one way. You turn it the other way, it won't fit in there. Same thing on this side here. So that's how it should look. The next thing would be, what else is there on here? I think that's all the transfer over. I'm going to remove these SMG lines, the hydraulic lines here, because I'm using my existing ones. And I think tomorrow I will start installing it. This is what the transmission tunnel looks like with the transmission removed. You can see the clutch, the flywheel, the pressure plate. All looks in good condition. I was hoping to find a rear main seal leak as a source of my oil leak, but it seems like nothing is leaking down there. So I'm not going to be too worried about that for now. Look up top there. See some wetness up there. I did just spray some degreaser a while ago to kind of clean it up. It's probably that. I'm going to clean it all up and see if I can find any kind of source of oil leak. It's coming from my engine, so I'm getting an oil leak somewhere. While I'm down here, I'm cleaning the whole transmission tunnel, all the grease and everything. You can see how kind of dirty it is. It's hard to clean it up a little bit already. Especially on this rail, all the oil and grease build up here. So to get the engine mounts out on the passenger side, what you got to do is, the one way of doing it is to, I undid the subframe bolts a little bit, just loosen it up so it can drop a little bit here. I got my jack stand, a block of wood here, kind of lifting up the oil pan right here, give a little height. Once you do that, you should be able to slip the engine mount off. Here's the engine mounts, my old versus my new. You can see the new one's a little bit taller than the old one. I had these on probably for like 100,000 miles on there. So time to change them out. quick video on the orientation of all the transmission bolts. So starting at this dowel right here, this is where the starter is kind of hooked into. These are E12 bolts here. E12 sockets go here. This is going to be E14 bolt here. This is the short one. And next to it is going to be another E14 short one. Down here is a long E14 one. These bolts cost about $30 a piece here. And right next to the E14 one is going to be the E10 bolts. Looks like this. You can reuse your old ones probably if you didn't round the heads off. So there's E10 here, right next to it, and one more right here. And the last bolt is going to be another long E14 bolt. It's right next to the starter right here. So that's how the bolt should be lined up on your transmission here. I went ahead and cleaned these starter bolts off a little bit. They were a little bit rusty and dirty. I used a wire brush, kind of scrub the in between the grooves there. Got a little 320 grit sandpaper, kind of roughing the top part of the bolt also. What I'm about to do, if I ever have to take this off again, I want to make sure that the bolts don't get stuck on. So I'm gonna put a little anti-seize on these bolts, just a tiny bit, just like so. I'll put some on this starter dowel, so hopefully it should be able to slip on, slip off. Each of these bolts here. Bolts. These back in like this. By the way, I forgot about there's one other bolt here. It's supposed to be another 14mm long bolt that goes right here. I have it in my other transmission there, but again, this is 14, 10, 10, 10. 14 is the long one, 14 short, and the E12 sockets there. This is how you would torque the guibo bolts down. The spec for this is going to be 85 foot-pounds of torque. I got a vice grip here, wrench right here, on the back side of the bolt. Like so. Kind of looks like this. Kind of clamp it down so the bolt doesn't move. So I got a handy snap-on wrench, and we're just going to torque it down. I'm going to do this like 30 foot-pounds each bolt, then crank it down some more so I get an even tightening pattern when I do this. This is that new guibo I just bought. At 28 now. More. So I'm gonna hit all 3 bolts around there and eventually hit 85 foot-pounds. Got 2 of these bricks on top of my jack to raise my car up high enough so I can slide this transmission that's on this transmission jack under there. I think I got it high enough. This is kind of unstable, so I want to slide this in there in between the tunnel and lower the car a little bit here. Do this quickly. Let me see if I can put this on a tripod so you can film this. All right, here we go. Oh yeah. Up there. This thing is heavy. Good, I think. Maybe not hitting headers, hitting the control arms. Let me try it again. Let me tilt it. Sucker. We're hitting headers now. Shit, the headers are in the way. See? Slide it past the headers. Fall. There we go. Okay. You got that, but I was able to get it past those headers right there. I tilted that transmission forward a little bit, but it's there. That's what it's gonna look like. I'm gonna go ahead and lower these brakes because that's still unsafe, and start putting it back together. The transmission install with doing one person is doable, but it's difficult. Well, let me show you a tip. I've managed to get the transmission back on, I think it's onto the input shaft. The difficult part is trying to push it into the input shaft. Here's a little tip. Get a C-clamp and clamp it against the engine block and the transmission. This way you can actually compress it together once you tighten it up. Once you do that, you can stick the one of your E46 sockets and kind of start threading it in there so you can tighten the transmission onto the engine block. It took me about an hour to figure this out. First time I'm doing it, but now I know next time I need to do this. Once you get that C-clamp tight enough, you can start threading in the E46 bolts. I got one going up here. You need some extensions. I don't know, about 3 foot of extensions. And you can see me, here's my extensions that's right on the side of the transmission there. I'm just going to start tighten it down. Start getting the transmission connected to the engine block. You can see it move slowly but surely. Again, I'm just reaching over with this socket ratchet here. There's an extension. I'm going to tighten down that E46 here. Got another E46 here. I'm going to tighten down. And make sure you have that spacer in here aligned and over the little alignment, little notch you have to where I'm pointing at there. Probably can't see it that well, but it's just there's an alignment, sort of like a pin right there. Before you reinstall your transmission, I made this mistake. You want to install all your hydraulic lines back to the hydraulic actuator here, because once you install, you can't reach any of these bolts to tighten them down. So there's one end that goes here, one I'm pointing to here, There's another one that goes behind here. You probably can't see it, but there's one behind here. There's one to the slave cylinder, and there's one more that goes right here. So you want to tighten those down before you install your transmission. This is if you remove this during the uninstall. Some people like to remove the hydraulic lines from the actual SMG pump. I didn't want to open up the remove the intake manifold to get to all that stuff. I just removed it from here. It's a lot easier. So the last thing to do, I'm going to test this out before I button everything up. I'm going to teach the clutch and bleed the SMG gearbox here. All the hydraulic line, get all the air out. Hopefully everything works. This program should take about, I don't know, 30 minutes around there to finish.